I've been serving time since my first day. Now I've been serving time since my first day.
My name is Vinny Cervantes with Dasher Denver Alliance for Street Health Response, and we are holding this press conference today as community stakeholders of the STAR Support Team Assisted Response program. First, we want to make sure we acknowledge the land that we're standing on right now of Ute, Arapaho, and Cheyenne territory. This is stolen land. We wanted to acknowledge that that's where we stand right now and where we continue to work and build in the community. Again, my name is Vinny Cervantes with Dasher, and we are speaking out about the issue with the STAR program right now, a community-driven initiative that was launched on June 1st last year in the midst of a national reckoning around policing and crisis alternatives. And we as community members have been driving this program, and yet we continue to see decisions made without our input. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we continue to see decisions made without our input, decisions made at the legislative level around support for these types of programs, and media coverage that has left the community out largely from the people who have continued to drive these programs and work without the recognition that the city is getting for the STAR program and other programs like it. We continue to see elected officials, city administration, people with the DDPHE and Department of Safety talk about our work, they talk about our lives, they talk about the ideas that we've had and the things that we've been doing for community for decades and years. We continue to see our language in these programs and then these legislation, but we do not see our voice, and that is why we are gathered here today. So we want to highlight the folks who are here and have been part of this program, starting with folks that are part of the advisory committee, and we'll be making demands as well that include, one, that the advisory committee that was agreed to on December 28th of 2020 be immediately implemented and seated with the original 5 members that include myself, Vinny Cervantes, Dr. Carol Watkins-Ali, Nita Gonzalez, Anna Sophia Cornelius, and Valerie Schleck. So that is the first demand, to immediately seat that advisory committee and to immediately interact with the program as it continues to expand and develop its role in this city. Second demand is that no more decisions will be made without community at the table, that decisions have been made, that things have been altered from the agreements and established principles that we created as a community-city collaboration, and that immediately no more decisions will be made without community at the table driving the conversation. And the third demand is that elected officials, city administration, and media respect the concept of community-driven program and prioritize and lift our voices in covering this program in a legislation that impacts it and an implementation of the program. So those are our 3 demands. We'll continue to expand on what we've experienced as community members throughout this process. First, I'm going to invite Anna with Denver Homeless Out Loud, who will also speak to her experience.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Anna Cornelius, and I'm with Denver Homeless Out Loud. My experience with this project has been bittersweet. It has been wonderful working with community. This project was born from the community, and our community takes responsibility for it and wants to ensure its success, and that is why it is successful. It has been bitter in terms of working with the city, who has been paternalistic at best. I don't know how they can assume that they know me better than me, but all I can say about that is that if they want continued success for the program, the only way that that will happen is through community-driven voice, participation, implementation, and accountability. In closing, I just want to say nothing about us without us. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. I also now want to introduce Valerie with the Colorado Cross Disability Coalition, who will also share some reflections on her experience with the STAR program.
Hello, I'm Valerie with Colorado Cross Disability Coalition. I really don't think I have much to say. Maybe that's because our voices have been silenced. I feel disrespected, and I feel that the committee has been disrespected. You cannot say that it's a community-led program if you don't allow the community to lead. It's very simple. And thank you.
Thank you, Governor. I now like Imam Ali to come up and speak and share some thoughts on as soon as that siren goes away. Thank you, Imam.
Bismillah, with God's name. We are really upset because there's been a lack of transparency, and we have people in the city that want to do business as usual, and this is a new environment, a new paradigm, and we're not going along with that. And so we're speaking out and letting it be known what's going on with this STAR program, and that the community must and will have major input in this. It has to be community-led and community-driven. And if it's not community-led and community-driven, it's not going to happen. And so we're not going to do business as usual. Things have to change. You have people who said that we're going to do things together. This is a different paradigm, and they went right back to the same old thing. Not going to have it. So it's important that we let the community know and let the city know. The people in the city of Denver know what's going on, so that they'll be informed, and we have to have transparency. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Imam Ali. I'd also like Reverend Holmes to come up and speak.
I've been serving time
Reverend Holmes, thank you for joining
my
us.
first day.
Thank you, Vinny.
I've been
Let me say
serving
that
time since
I represent FACE IT, Family Advocacy, Crisis Education, Intervention Team. FACE IT was put together in response to the Paul Childs shooting back in 2003. And we came together as one of the first African American organizations to work with the city on a city-sponsored, city-funded program to deal with the mental health issues in our community. Certainly the metrics that we came up with during that program does not reflect the metrics that have been put forth on this program. There is an undue concentration in the 80205 area code with this program thus far. And so not only are we talking about what we're going to do going forward, but we're also looking at how this program has functioned thus far. And for those who want to pronounce it as a success, need only look at the matrix. It is unduly serving the downtown area, but it's not serving our brown and black communities to the degree that it needs to. And we're calling on these city administrators who are responsible for this program to do the right thing, to give our community the control, to give our community the lead on this program, so that the program can do exactly what it was intended to do. But as we look at this program today, if it's going to continue, as Imam said, as business as usual, we're here to say, no, it's not. That we're going to demand something different out of this program and out of our city administrators. So I'm strongly encouraging all who are hearing my voice, all who are here, to stand strong against this and stand against those who would pull this from the community into the city or into an organization that's only going to do business as usual. We won't have that.
Thank you, Reverend. I want to now introduce Sky Morris, who's also been part of these conversations for a very long time with Four Winds American Indian Council and American Indian Center, or American Indian Movement of Colorado. Sky, please share your thoughts. Thank you.
Dagote, Sky Roosevelt Morris on say. My name is Sky Roosevelt Morris. I come from the White Mountain Apache Nation and the Shawnee Nation. As my relative Vinny said, I represent Four Winds American Indian Council, American Indian Movement of Colorado, and also Tall Bull Memorial Council. And I thought really deeply about what I wanted to say in support of our relatives today for this community program, and how disappointed I am about how the city has taken their position. But I can't say that I'm all too surprised. And before I say too much, I also just want to acknowledge that we are on occupied land. That the city of Denver, state of Colorado, is on 48 indigenous peoples' territories. And so what jurisdiction do they have to dictate to us what freedom looks like and what self-determination for our communities looks like? They have no jurisdiction to tell us anything on our own homeland. And it's unfortunate because now they have people that look like us doing the dirty work of the state. And just because Michael Hancock is a man of color does not make him the exception to state violence. Why are they sweeping our unsheltered relatives when 5% of our unsheltered community are indigenous people? You cannot be homeless in your homeland. You can be unsheltered and you can have lack of resources, but you are not homeless in your homeland. And 4 of our young Native men have been murdered by DPD when an alternative like Star could have saved their lives. We understand directly the implications of not having a community program run by our people. We aspire to self-determination. We aspire to the liberation of all peoples. And this does not meet that standard as long as the city still continues to stand in the way of people aspiring to those aspirations. And so my demand is that the city get the hell out of the way so the people can do their work. Get the hell out of our way, Hancock. Get the hell out of our way, Payson. We don't need the state, and we sure as hell don't need the fucking cops. Thank you very much.
Leave me broken, but don't you fix me. Leave me broken, but don't you fix me. Leave me broken, but don't you fix me.
Anyway, we are an essential organization. I'm the executive director of Servicios de la Raza, Rudy Gonzalez, and also someone who's been really committed and one of the early promoters, supporters of what is now the STAR program, which is a alternative to policing program. I just want to say that I've been marching and sucking up mace and tear gas since I was 8 years old, here in Denver, and in DC, and in LA. I stand here on the shoulders of my father, Rodolfo Corky Gonzalez, who started some of the first marches against police brutality and violence in the 60s and 70s and 80s. So this is not a new struggle. This is a generational struggle that started actually in 1492. And it's going to continue. And we are going to continue to put pressure on systemic racism, systemic violence, state racism and violence. And we are here to say that get out of the way, let community take the driver's seat. We'll let you in the passenger seat. We need you as passengers. We need your government as passengers. We need the resources. so we can empower our communities and do our work in determining our own destiny and how we serve. We put our time, our talent, our treasure, our sweat, blood, and tears into this planning, into these meetings, day in, day out, weekly, only to be denied or ignored when it comes to full participation. There is a very out of balance power dynamic. And I worked for the state, I worked for the city. So I understand that programming is only as good as the spirit of the elected official in that seat or appointed official in that seat, but that will change. And so community, we are the ones that don't change. We're gonna be here when Michael's out of office. We're gonna be here when city council's out of office. We're gonna be here when those appointees are out of office. And we're still going to be here suffering. And we did not get maced and tear gassed and beaten bloody and shot and jailed over this summer to have government dictate to us what an alternative to policing should look like. Really? And this was not just Denver, this was global. This was across the nation. And I'm not saying defund the police, but reallocate those bloated resources to community. And let us put our money where our mouth is in serving our own people in a culturally responsive, linguistically specific way. And when I say culturally responsive, it's just not about ethnicity. It's not just about Chicanos or Mexicanos or Islamic people or Native people serving their own people, but it is the culture of the streets, the culture of poverty, the culture of prisons, the culture of police abuse, the culture of homelessness. There are all kinds of cultures. And to be responsive means dignity and respect and taking the time with people to de-escalate and not escalate. That's what we're willing to do for our community. We put ourselves in harm's way every day of the year. We are an essential organization. 9 of my staff have contracted coronavirus over the last year and a half, or since last March, over the last year, serving our community. We finally got vaccinated as an essential organization. We have vaccinated over 5,000 Latinos here in Denver Metro and in Colorado Springs, and we'll be going to places like Fort Morgan, places like Longmont, like Otero County, Conejos County, because we care about our community. So this is just what we do. So let us do this work too. Let us respond to our communities and de-escalate situations so police don't have to get involved. Okay? I want to introduce, and actually from our Asian community, introduce Ashley Lewis. And she is a supporter and executive director of the initiative, which is a victims disability program. Say a couple words. I know.
Okay, well, this was a little bit unexpected.
You're good.
Okay, well, I do victim service work around domestic violence victims and with disabilities. And what we know is that our disability community members, they do not feel safe calling the police for help. And how many of our disability community members that have been killed by police with inappropriate response. And so I actually had great hopes for STAR program when I first heard that it was coming out. And so it's a bit disappointing, but let's hold them accountable. We as people can absolutely hold them accountable for them to do the job that they're supposed to do. And I think that's it. Thank you. Thank you.
I know, I'm like that. Vinny, back to you.
I'm gonna fight these chains till I get free. I'm gonna fight these chains.
joined today, both in support and as speakers and those who are covering this work. We often find that the social workers who have benefited from the advocacy of community get a lot of attention, but not the community that made these programs happen. We see elected officials take the credit for our work and put legislation forward that does not reflect the work that we're doing in the community, and that is in large part why we are here today. Last year, when we were talking about expansion of the STAR program, a council office, while City Council was expanding this program and expanding the funding without contacting any one of us, one of the council offices said that they wanted to take advantage of the momentum from the protests and the national reckoning around policing across this country after the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. And as that trial goes this week to prosecute the officer who killed George Floyd, one that we fear might end as many others have, we want to acknowledge that the momentum didn't start from last year. The momentum started at the very least in 1973 with Luis Jr. Martinez being killed by police and FBI as a leader of the Chicano movement and the Crusade for Justice. It started with Paul Childs in 2003, and Marvin Booker in 2011, and Michael Marshall in 2015, and Paul Castaway in 2015, and Jesse Hernandez in 2014. It started with the people in our own backyards who have suffered, who have died, who have struggled and have their lives taken or ruined from them because of the violent system. And the violent system that puts the wrong person in the wrong situation and the wrong people in the wrong communities. And so the momentum didn't start with elected officials deciding that somebody who was murdered in Minneapolis deserved action in Colorado, but because of the years and decades of work that we've done to support our own community members, family members, and friends who've been taken by this system. So we want to remind the city, both Mayor Hancock, Denver Department of Health and Environment, who now runs this program, Department of Safety and 911, that STAR was the compromise, it was not the vision. We want to remind you all about that because we are still intent on creating that vision. Thank you.
Remind everybody that we have a power dynamic imbalance too with media, because we have some media here, thank you, who did show up, but our electronic media, our news media, they are not here. And shame on them. Shame on them.